Hi everyone, and welcome back to Explore with NTV. I'm Nadira, and I hope that you're all well and are ready to explore a new educational topic. And so Tusby will be explaining what today's topic is about.
Hello friends, and I'm going to be explaining what the topic is about. The topic is called plants, and we're going to be talking about different types of plants and gardening.
Yeah, and actually I feel like people don't really know too much about the science of plants because it's a subcategory of biology. And in fact, the study of plants is called botany, and so the scientists that study plants are called botanists. And I feel like most people don't actually know the terminology.
And also, plants are awesome, not just because they're beautiful, also because they're scientific and because they give you lots of oxygen.
Yeah, and in fact, plants are obviously one of the key characteristics that help us describe our current Earth. You know, the ocean and plants are one of the key reasons why we are here and that we can survive on Earth.
Yeah. And friends, as you know, we're on Bub, so please do tell us what TV programs you'd like to watch, and keep on watching NTV.
Yeah, that's important. And so now I see we also have Flora with us. Hi, Flora.
Hi, everyone.
So, Flora, how are you?
I'm great.
And are you excited to learn about plants?
Absolutely.
And so, what is one of your favorite plants or flowers?
I'd say lilies.
Oh, why do you like lilies?
Because they smell very nice. Do you like to be in nature? Yes, because I was born from there.
Oh.
When did you last see a plant? I last saw a plant a few weeks ago.
Oh.
What food do dogs eat? Bones or bone-shaped dog biscuits? And grass.
Thank you so much, Flora. I found your answers very informative.
And funny.
Yeah. Bye, Flora.
Bye.
And so what about you, Tusby? What's one of your favorite flowers or plants?
One of my favorite plants are roses.
Ooh.
Because they smell nice.
Yeah.
And they look really ripe, like red apples.
Yeah, they're very bright.
What about you, Nadira?
I would say one of my favorite flowers is cherry blossoms. I think that they're very pretty because they're pink, and that in the spring they look very nice on the trees when they start to fall and when they grow as well.
Like in my garden, I have a few of them.
Yeah.
And I always take some every spring.
And so, have you ever visited a famous garden before?
Well, not
Or
famous,
Oh, okay.
but I would say like a fruit farm, and I collected ripe plums and
Ooh.
strawberries.
Wow, that must have been really nice going to that fruit farm.
Yeah.
When did you go?
Well, I like Flora a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
How about you, Nadira?
So I've never actually gone to a fruit farm like you. I have visited a famous park, like Hyde Park, for instance, or Regent's Park in central London. But I do really want to go to this famous garden called Kew Gardens. Yeah, it's very pretty, has so many different types of flowers, and so I would love to visit there. And have you ever planted a flower before, or a different type of plant?
Well, I've planted a few lilies
Ooh.
and dandelions.
Yeah.
I've planted lots of fruits, for example, pineapple, and the leaves are very long.
Yeah. I haven't actually planted a flower before, like how you have, but my family does plant potatoes and carrots as well. I remember a while ago when it was the autumn, we had to harvest all of the vegetables from the garden, and that was really fun. We had to wash them and then eat them. It was good. And so, do you like being in nature, Tusby?
Yeah, I like being in nature because you get lots of oxygen from trees, and it's natural.
Yeah. And I think being in nature is really nice because of the fact that especially if you live in the city, sometimes it's nice to get away and be in a space that is completely different to, what you're used to. and it's a good sense of fresh air, like how you said, with the oxygen.
Yeah, normally in a garden.
Yeah, that's why gardens are really nice. I have a balcony in my room, so I do feel like I enjoy going out in my balcony when it's a bit, when I feel a bit down or something. It's nice to be in nature and have fresh air.
Okay, so...
And what types of plants or vegetables do you like to eat, Tasbih?
For vegetable, I like to eat carrots, one of my favorite vegetables. So, how about you, Nadira?
I would say I love eating lots of vegetables. I am vegetarian, so that is the majority of my diet. And so yeah, I do like vegetables. I think an example would probably be carrots. I love carrots. I think that they're very nice. Carrot sticks especially, they're good.
We both like carrots.
Or potatoes as well, they're very nice. And what do you think about like fake versus real plants? Do you think that there's a difference, or do you not mind either?
Well, I like real plants because, like I said, they normally give you oxygen.
Yeah.
And it's also nice to have fake plants. Like in my old school, there were in the playground there was fake grass, and we could also take a little bit off secretly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I really like both. I think that I do personally, just like you, prefer real plants just because of the fact that I feel like there is a different texture to them. They do smell really nice. That's one thing that you don't get in fake plants. But I think that definitely having fake plants can be really good if you can't maintain them. For instance, in my family, we have fake grass in our garden, and that's so that we don't need to lawn the grass every single month. It's just a lot easier if you're a bit lazy.
Yeah.
And so let's move on to some more educational questions. Do you know the different sections of a plant?
Well, first the roots. It starts off at the roots.
Yeah.
And then the stem. And then where the pollen normally is, and which is where the petals are as well.
Yeah. So actually parts of the, just like animals for instance, that all of those different parts of the plant have different purposes, and that's to help it survive. For instance, like how you said with the soil, that is used to collect minerals from the ground, and then like the stem for instance is used to help keep the plant upright so it can collect as much sunlight as possible.
How do plants get food?
So plants get food through a process called photosynthesis, and actually that is, the term means photo, which is light, and synthesis, which is to make or to gather. And so that basically means that the plants, what they do is they create sunlight, they use sunlight with carbon dioxide from the air and water from the rain or from the soil to make glucose, which is basically plant food. It's a sugar. And they also, as a byproduct, create oxygen. That's why plants create oxygen through that process. And so do you know why plants and flowers are so colorful?
Yes, so they attract bees, and bees can get their pollen to make honey.
Yeah. And actually there's obviously probably so many different colorful plants and flowers, probably each for every single color of the rainbow, don't you think?
Yeah. Why are plants so important in the food chain?
So plants are really important in the food chain because of the fact that they create their own food. So as humans and as other animals, we rely on either eating other animals or plants. And so if plants couldn't make their own food, then what would the rest of the food chain eat, So it is really important. They're a crucial member of the food chain because they're at the base, because they create their own food. And so what are some interesting types of trees that you know?
Palm trees and pine trees. Pine trees are normally for Christmas trees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so can you name some interesting types of flowers?
So there's so many different types of flowers, including sunflowers, roses, just like how you said, lilies, lotus flowers, and also dandelions. They're really nice to blow off, and if you want to make a wish, I think they're really fun. And do you know any different types of plants?
I'd say the Venus flytrap.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good example.
Yeah.
That's a carnivorous plant.
Yeah, because to eat, they need to eat bugs and flies, which they fly over them, and then they just eat it when they're not looking.
It lies on the surface of the plant, and then it snaps closed. So then it eats the spider or the fly.
Who are some famous plant scientists?
So a famous botanist is Carl Linnaeus, and he was very famous because he invented how the plants and different types of organisms are classified, and that's called taxonomy. So he's probably one of the most famous plant scientists that there are. And so can you name, or how do plants and trees change throughout the seasons?
Well, first in spring, the plants start to grow.
Yeah.
And then in summer, the plants get lots of sunshine. In autumn, the plants, leaves or petals, if it's a flower, fall down.
Yeah.
And then in winter, there's no leaves. And it keeps on going on.
Yeah,
like, kind
every
of like
year.
keeps on going.
Like a cycle.
Yeah. So, what are the national flowers of England and Bangladesh?
So the national flower of England, to start off with, is the Tudor rose, and that's because at the time the royal family who decided the national flower were the Tudors, and so they decided to call the national flower the Tudor rose. And for Bangladesh, the national flower is the water lily, and that's because there's so many different rivers in Bangladesh that there's lots of water lilies everywhere.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're so beautiful.
I think they're very beautiful flowers. So it's actually interesting how each country has their own national flower.
Yeah, like national city.
Yeah, or like kind of like every single country has a capital city. Every country has a national flower that they really like.
Yeah.
And so that's all that we have for this segment of the show, and we will see you after the break. Bye!
Bye! Hello friends, and welcome back after the break. In this segment we usually read books, so that's what we're going to do. So, Nadira, what book would you like to read?
I would like to read this book.
Okay, so here you go.
This book is called My Big Science Book, and it's all about different types of easy science experiments that you can do from home. And so I would like to show you 2 examples of a plant experiment I think are really fun. So this is one of the plant experiments. It's basically where you put a plant inside a shoebox, and then you put little barriers inside the shoebox so that there's only a little section where the plant can grow. And so that means that the plant will have to kind of grow like this, like a zigzag sort of.
Yeah.
And I think that looks really fun.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the top of it is a bit weird.
Of course, this experiment requires quite a bit of time to allow the plant to grow. So the next experiment that you could do is to color flower petals. And so the way you do that is by getting a white flower and allowing it to grow in water, but instead of just plain water, you would put food coloring in it. And so then that means that the flower would absorb the food coloring and then create pretty color flowers.
Yes, from the stem and then up to the feather.
The petals.
Petals.
Yeah, that's really nice. So here you can see that they did 2 colors. They did blue and red, and so you have 2 halves of the flower that look like that. I think it looks
Kind
really,
of
really cool.
purpley shade. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks a bit purple, and that's because blue and red make the color purple, right?
Yeah.
So that's the 2 experiments that you could potentially do from home.
Yeah, I've done a school experiment from home.
Really?
Yeah, and so you get soil,
Mm-hmm.
and then you put water,
Yeah.
and then we have to wait like 2 to 3 days,
Yeah.
and then it kind of turns hard, and there's some things before that.
Oh.
There's some things floating around,
Oh, okay.
like
Wow.
leaves and
Yeah.
bits,
Oh.
kind of like sand but bigger.
Yeah. What book would you like to read, Tasbih?
Well, I'd like to read Bee Makes Tea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's have a read then.
Bee makes tea. Meet Bee. Bee lives beside the sea. Today she's all aflutter, for it's Queen Bee's birthday tea. Bee buzzes home and starts to bake. Soon her room fills up with cake. Chocolate cheesecakes on the chairs, cherry cupcakes up the stairs, pies piled high with plums and pears. Ant runs in and grins with glee. You're making tea for my Queen Bee. Her birthday tea is by the sea. I've planned a grand tea on the sand. It must go well. Can I lend a hand? They stack up cups and fill the pot. Bee starts to frown. It looks a lot. Oh, Ant, how will I carry that? Wait there, says Ant. I'll soon be back. He finds his friends and lines them up. They carry cakes and plates and cups.
Ooh.
2 take the milk, 3 take the pot. Look out, calls Bee, that tea is hot. Well, says Ant, that cake is tall. Be careful now, don't let it fall. Speed up, shouts Ant, move that cake faster. Then one ant slips and trips, disaster. Oh no, Bee cries, she sobs and sighs. That was my Queen Bee's big surprise. The Queen will be so mad with me. She'll say that I'm a bad, bad bee.
Oh.
Collect it all, Ant tells his team. Now quick, Bee, whip up some buttercream. You need to use the cream like glue, see? Stuck together good as new.
Wow.
The Queen Bee gasps and laughs. He, a special cake that looks like me. Thank you for my birthday tea.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think the moral of the story could be that you should work together,
Yeah.
and if you need help, then you could come up with another idea to
Yeah.
help you out.
Yeah, I think that was really nice, especially since the ants and the bee was working together so well. I think that proves that teamwork is always really, really good.
And helps you out a lot. So, Nadira, I see you want to read another book.
Yeah, I do. I want to read this book. And this is actually a children's encyclopedia, so it covers lots of educational topics, and that obviously also includes plants. So let's have a bit of a read. Plant world. Plants are different from animals in several ways. They can't move from place to place, but most can only react slowly to changes around them. Unlike animals, plants make their own food. Plant groups. There are over 270,000 different kinds of plants. They can be looked at into groups which have similar characteristics. Making food. Green plants use the sun's energy to make their own food from the leaves. They turn water and minerals from the soil and carbon dioxide gas from the air into sugar. Sugar is plant food. This process is called photosynthesis. So that's similar to what we were discussing.
Yeah.
Flowering plants. The largest group of plants are flowering plants. They include trees as well as flowers. Their main parts are leaves, stems, and roots. Inside a flower. Flowers contain parts that can make seeds, and they grow into new plants. To make the seeds, a yellow dust called pollen has to be carried to one flower to the other. The wind and small animals and insects help do this job.
Like bees.
Yeah, just like bees. How plants grow. Many plants start off as seeds. Each seed has a tiny part inside that allows it to grow into a new plant, as well as store food for the baby plant. Fruits and seeds. Seeds are held in a part of the plant called the fruit. There are lots of different types. They protect the seeds and help them spread to places where they grow. The picture shows some of the ways the fruits help the seeds to spread. So you can see here, just here, that there are some animals, and the wind is also pulling away some of the petals, and that helps the seeds from the flowers and the fruits to spread into the rest of the ground. Starting to grow. To start growing a seed needs water, warmth, and oxygen. When it's warm enough, the roots and a tiny shoot will push their way out. A plant at this stage is called a seedling. From seedling to plant. A seedling lives off the food stored in its seed until it grows leaves to make its own food. So that's interesting, the fact that there's already some food for the plant in the seed, so that it can wait until the leaves grow for it to make their own.
Yeah, that means it's part of the seed already.
Yeah.
Kind of like stored food.
Yeah, stored food. That's a good way of describing it. The plant grows and has flowers and seeds of its own. The seeds grow into new plants, and so on. Life and death. The changes that happen to the living thing during its life is called its life cycle. Different types of plants have different life cycles and different lengths of their cycle. And so the next page is about trees and leaves. A tree is a plant with a thick woody stem called a trunk. Most trees can grow for hundreds of years. Some trees are small, but many are taller than houses. Tree bark. As a tree grows, its outer layers become harder. When they die, they form a tough layer called bark. There are many different types. For instance, a beech tree has smooth, thin bark, whereas an English oak has cracked and rigged bark. Cypress trees are evergreen, which means that they don't lose their leaves at once. Trees and roots. A tree uses its roots to take in water from the soil. They also act as an anchor. Tall trees, such as cypress trees below, could not stay standing without their strong roots. That's very important, isn't it? The roots, they're vital to keep the tree up.
Yeah, and the stem to keep it straight up.
Yeah. And that's actually quite nice. In the forest and stuff, you can see very old trees. They have the roots that stick up from the ground, like you can actually feel the root.
Yeah, and sometimes they show above the ground.
Yeah, they're visible. Looking at leaves. Leaves contain a green chemical which absorbs sunlight to help them make food. That's actually called chlorophyll. When leaves die, their green chemical fades away and they change color. So that's what happens in the autumn, right?
Yeah.
Many types of trees lose their leaves every autumn. They are called deciduous trees. Trees that don't lose their leaves are also called evergreens, as well as coniferous trees. So there's many different types of leaves. Holly has tough spiky leaves. Horse chestnuts have seven and separate parts called leaflets. Atlas cedars have bunched up thin and sharp leaves. Oak trees have soft leaves with wavy edges. So there's lots of different types of leaves.
Yeah. And in autumn, the leaves are kind of crunchy.
Yeah, they aren't very strong. They can crumple. Yeah.
Like when you step on them, they normally just crumple like that.
Seeds and fruits. All trees produce flowers which grow into fruits. Fruits contain seeds which can grow into new trees, and the cycle continues. This acorn is from an oak tree. Oh, I love acorns.
Yeah.
And when they fall off the trees, it's always fun.
And when the squirrels eat them, like...
Yeah. Oh. An apple has several seeds in its core as well. And so the final page is called fungi. Fungi are not plants because they can't make their own food. Instead, they feed on once living or deceased things. Types of fungi. Fungi come in thousands of different shapes and sizes. Mushrooms and toadstools are fungi. You can eat some types, but others are deadly poisonous. That's interesting. I actually think that the mushrooms, I love the way they look because they kind of look like a mini umbrella.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
And toadstools.
I remember actually mushrooms were growing in my garden, and so we had to get rid of them because they were obviously a fungi. The green furry blobs you sometimes see on fruit or cheese is known as a type of fungus called mold. These incapped toadstools are growing and feeding on old moss-covered logs.
Oh.
So spores. Fungi don't make their seeds or pollen. Instead, what they do is they shed clouds of tiny specks called spores. These are scattered all around by the wind and grow into new fungi. Fungus spores can be seen using microscopes because they're very small. Useful fungi. Some types of fungi are very useful. A fungus called yeast is used to make bread and wine. Some medicines are also made of fungi too. And so that's all about the different types of plants and fungi. I find that very interesting.
Yeah. So plants are very natural, and that's also a way of, and also trees also give you lots of oxygen. I think more than plants and flowers. Okay, so see you after the break in our next segment. So bye.
Bye everyone. Hi everyone, and welcome back from the break. So in this third and final segment, we have a wonderful guest with us, and her name is Danica. So, hi Danica!
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not too bad at all.
And so we would love to get to know you a bit better, and we have a few questions for you.
Yep,
So,
I'm ready.
How have you been handling lockdown?
Lockdown's been pretty good for me. I've just been making the most of the time, keeping busy indoors, and just really making the most of it while it lasts.
Yeah, and I feel like all of us can relate to that as well.
Yeah. Why do you like having plants in your room?
I feel like having plants indoors helps to bring a bit of nature, like just indoors. So having a little bit of the outside in your own room can really make you feel close to nature, in my opinion.
And so other than like taking care of your plants, what are some other hobbies that you also have?
In my free time, I like music, I like reading, I like doing research into whatever topic I might find interesting at the moment. Just lots of different things.
Yeah.
Who is in your family and how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 siblings. They're both brothers, and one's older than me and one's younger than me.
Okay. And what makes taking care of plants so much fun for you?
For me, the fun comes from the responsibility. So you take this tiny seed and you help grow it and develop it into something so much bigger than it started as, and that's really fun for me.
I think it's quite fun how how the responsibility, so the actual control that you have over your plants, you know, and taking care of them, is all on you, and so it's kind of like your success when you see them grow. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, and it makes you happy, wanting you to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
When did you start to buy plants?
Well, I've had plants bought for me for a long time now, but I started buying plants for myself a few years ago, maybe when I was around 14, 15.
Okay. And so have you ever traveled to a place where there's lots of nature or lots of different types of plants?
I have actually. My family's from the Caribbean, so we
Oh.
visit there a lot, and it's mostly natural in general. So there's lots of different types of plants, lots of mountainous areas, lots of different flowers, and it's really beautiful to see the different landscapes.
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
Did you enjoy studying about plants in school?
I did enjoy studying about plants in school. It was a big part of biology when I did it, and I did really enjoy it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed learning about plants in school as well. What about you,
Yeah.
Tusby?
Yeah, I like doing plants, like growing them. We did a test
Yeah.
when we didn't put an important part of growing plants and see what happened.
Oh, yeah, I think growing plants is always so much fun in a classroom.
Yeah.
And so, for Danica, have you ever visited any famous garden or park or farm?
Yes, I visited a couple. I really like exploring the different ones. For example, Hampstead Heath is one of my favourites, but of all time it has to be Kew Gardens. I visited there almost every year, and I think it's such a lovely place to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's always nice I like to go on a day out to a beautiful garden. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, and see lots of different plants and maybe learn more about them. Have you ever done a science experiment with plants?
I have done a couple experiments actually. I think I've done one similar to you with growing them without one of the key conditions, which I remember doing. But one that really sticks with me is when we grew mustard seeds on cotton wool. That was really fun.
Oh, and so thank you so much for answering our general questions. I think I have got to know you a lot better. And so now we would like to ask you a few more questions about plants and about your opinions on how to take care of plants and gardening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before we do that, we'd love to see the plants that you currently own in your bedroom.
Ooh, I like the flower.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice. And so, Danica, how do you maintain the plants that you have?
I try to keep a consistent schedule when I water them and give them plenty of sunlight, keep my windows open so they can get some fresh air as well.
Yeah, I think it is quite hard to maintain that schedule. Like sometimes it's easy to forget about your plants, isn't it? And then they could potentially die. It's a bit sad.
Yeah, sometimes you could just maybe set a timer to help you remember.
Or maybe put like a notification on your phone to help you remember those things.
Yeah. Do you enjoy being around nature and why?
I really enjoy being around nature. I think it's really relaxing and it can be really tranquil to just be surrounded by different plants and different forms of nature. And I think it comes along with getting fresh air as well, which is so, so important, especially during lockdown.
Yeah, I agree. And what advice would you give to somebody that wants to grow indoor plants in their house or bedroom?
My advice would be to really look at that plant's needs because every plant is slightly different. But one piece of advice that I've learned recently is to gently sway the stem of the plant because it helps to simulate wind and makes it stronger. So that's a tip that I would give.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also a good way of maintaining your plant is to research a bit about the different types of minerals and things like that that you need. Maybe the soil as well, that's also important in growing the plant. So doing a bit of research beforehand is always good.
Yeah, and water and sunshine is very important as well.
Yeah.
If you could choose to grow a vegetable, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think I'd grow green beans. I really do like them. They're probably my favourite vegetable, so I'd grow green beans.
Yeah, that's nice to grow green beans.
Yeah. And so what do you think are some of the positives and negatives about growing plants?
I think one of the positives about growing plants is the responsibility that it brings, and especially being able to take care of something and help it grow. But then a negative would be that the same thing, that it's a lot of responsibility. You can't forget to water it, you can't leave it alone for too long, so you really do have to keep a good balance with it.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how like sometimes the positive can also be the exact same negative, isn't it? Like how, you know, obviously having responsibility is a good thing, but then at the same time it comes with, you know, a lot of trying to be very consistent and, you know, things like that.
Yeah, and if you keep on doing it a lot, like giving your plants too much water, it could flood.
Yeah. I guess it needs to become a habit for you to know exactly how much water and things like that it needs. So yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite story about plants?
My favourite story about plants, linked back to vegetables again, it's the giant turnip, the old fairy tale, because it really does crack me up, and I wish I could grow something as big as that one day.
And so what do you think are some things that people should avoid when it comes to taking care of plants, or what are some common mistakes that people make?
I think a common mistake that people make is overwatering their plants, because we all know that it's really important that they have enough water, but that can sometimes lead to giving them too much, and they might flood, or it's not healthy for them to have that much water. So I think it's important to avoid things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where do you suggest to buy your plants from? Where did you buy your plants, and what would you suggest for the audience?
I got my plants from a local garden centre when they were a lot smaller, and then I've just grown them myself. So I would definitely recommend garden centres for a first place to try, but also bigger supermarkets are quite good for plants, and also department stores like B&Q and Homebase as well.
Yeah. So thank you so much for answering our questions. And Tasbih, what time is it?
It's time for a quiz!
Yeah, so it's time for our quiz. And so we'll be asking you multiple choice questions all about plants. So I hope you do well, and good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, which garden plant in the 17th century was exchanged as a form of currency in the Netherlands? So is it number 1, tulip, number 3, lilies, or number 4, orchids?
I'm going to go with number 1, tulips.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually quite funny how, you know, plants used to be a form of currency. I guess that was before the invention of actual coins and cash, things like that.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird.
How can you tell the age of a tree? Its height, the number of rings, the number of leaves.
The number of rings.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I remember my sister telling me that she learned a lot about how the rings indicate the age of the tree in her A-level biology. So it's actually quite advanced, I guess, to learn about those types of things. I feel like a lot of people don't actually know those that thing. And another thing is that obviously with the leaves and things, you can, in some sense, you can understand that the height of the tree does indicate its level of age, but at the same time, if a tree is the same height as another tree, you can look at the rings to know exactly how old it is. Yeah. And so, which king lived in Kew Gardens and Kew Palace during the 18th century? Was it Richard I, George II, or Charles II?
I'm going to go with Richard I.
Oh, it was actually George II. Funnily enough, George II and George III also lived in Kew Palace.
Yeah. Which of the following types of wood come from a coniferous tree? Coniferous tree. Beech, oak, or pine?
I'm going to go with pine.
That's correct.
Yeah, and actually coniferous trees are the ones where the trees don't lose their leaves, and then judicious are the ones that do lose their leaves. So what type of leaf is found on the Canadian flag? Is it the maple leaf, the ash leaf, or the willow leaf?
I think it's the maple leaf.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, like how we said with the national flowers, the maple leaf is on the flag because the maple tree is so common in Canada.
Yes. Which of the following flowers is often used when referring to the golden ratio in that?
Ratio, yeah.
Lotus, sunflower, or daffodil?
I'm gonna go with sunflowers.
Yeah, that's right. And that's because the seeds are so visible on a sunflower that that's often referred to when talking about the golden ratio. So the next question is, which of the following mineral deficiencies causes yellowing in leaves? Is it the deficiency in nitrogen, copper, or sulfur?
Ooh, is it copper?
Yeah, that's right.
So, the next question is, which of the following countries has greater biodiversity and different species of plants? Australia, Brazil, or America?
I'm gonna have to go with Australia, I think.
Ooh,
It's Brazil. And an easy way to remember that is that it has the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, as well as having the equator near there. So actually there's a lot of biodiversity anywhere where there is the equator. And so, Danica, you did really well on the quiz, actually. I thought it was quite a difficult quiz. So
Thank you.
I'm glad that you did really well. I hope you enjoyed it. And that's all that we have for this last segment. And so, bye everyone.
Bye. See you in the next episode.
Bye.